Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Food School Smarter, Stronger, Leaner podcast on a mission to inspire a world where food makes us better. Guys, today is Tuesday, and today, before starting talking about balanced meal plans and what it means to eat a balanced diet, what it means to eat a balanced meal, every meal you eat in our food-confused food environment, before talking about all the foods, my favorite, what I like to call superfoods, because they provide certain nutrients, the best, certain essential for human health nutrients. So before talking about all of that, that's upcoming later this week, guys, today I want to answer this one question that I think might be on the minds of a lot of you. And again, in our food confused, nutrition confused environment where we have no food education, but instead a bunch of diet, food, nutrition opinions that a lot of times have loud voices, but very little science supporting them. So in this environment, guys, I think this question is very important. And the question goes like this. The question I got on one of my social media. What do diets do? Like, how do they work and why do they work? What do they do in our body? There are two parts to this question. Usually, we use diets for correcting our weight or to correct our health conditions. And also, of course, when I'm talking about health, I'm talking about fitness, I'm talking about gut health, I'm talking about mental health, I'm talking about all of these aspects of health. But let's start with a shorter part of this question. What do diets do for weight loss, for not just weight loss, but correcting your weights? Because some people having troubles putting on weight or staying at a normal weight and they need to increase their weight, not to decrease it. That's also a problem that exists in many people. So what do diets do? How do they help us to correct our weight? Well, for weight loss, they help us to create a condition, metabolic condition in our bodies, inside of us, that as a result of different metabolic processes, basically, I'm trying to say that these diets help us to create a condition of energy deficit in our bodies. What it means is that at the end of the day, when we take into account all the foods that we eat, our activity levels, all of our metabolic processes that also require energy to run and maintain. So at the end of the day, if a chosen diet helps us to be in an energy deficit state, so basically the body doesn't have enough energy to do what it needs to do, then we're going to start losing weight. And that state of energy deficit or surplus, in which case we're going to put on weight, it doesn't just depend on the amount of calories we put in our mouth. No, it depends, of course, on the quality of foods, because different foods will affect our digestion, our metabolism in a different way. It's going to affect our hormones in a different way. And based on that, the body might be able or not able to lose or gain weight. So the foods, they're not just calories. They are also agents that via certain chemicals contained in them, they affect all these other different processes, from hormones to our digestion to our gut health, what kind of bacteria we have in our gut, and whether that bacteria can extract more energy from our food or less energy. Or some people have very little functional gut bacteria, believe it or not, and for them it's actually very hard to get certain nutrients needed to maintain certain weight. Or the reverse is true. They have certain bacteria that are much better at getting energy from all kinds of food and then creating certain compounds that drive our metabolism in a way of storing energy. So there is no magic. In order to put on weight, you still need to get more energy, consume more energy, for example, right? But it's also not a guarantee that if you do eat more energy, you're going to put on weight because of all these other different aspects of your digestion, your metabolism, your hormones that can affect whether you lose weight, whether you put on weight. Some people can eat a very high fat diet, for example, keto diet, and then on paper, meaning they will put more calories in their mouth that their body can use, but most of those calories will go out as diarrhea. I'm sorry for the reminder of this very not pleasant event that sometimes happens to all of us. But that way, most of the fat will go out, will be in a toilet, and that's how those people will not put on any weight. So it's not just about what we put in our mouth, it's also what happens to that food, how it is digested, how it is absorbed, how our body, using different digestive organs, is able to extract the energy, and then how all the other nutrients beside the calories affect our metabolic processes, and how that allows us to either put on weight or lose weight. So yes, at the end of the day, it's all about energy balances, but there are also all these many ways that in which food affects our body and how it works and how our metabolism runs. That's why calories in, calories out. It's not that simple, even though it is true. So this was a shorter part of this question, what do diets do? A longer part, or maybe shorter one, I'm not sure. A longer part is, what do diets do for our health? Like, how do they work? Why do we use dietary approaches to change our health and our fitness? Well, different components in our foods, because again, different kinds of foods, they're not just energy storages. No, they have all the other different molecules. Some we know, like different vitamins and minerals, fatty acids, amino acids, different plant compounds that we call antioxidants or polyphenols. All these compounds and more that we yet to discover. So foods have all these compounds, and we consume it literally in pounds every day. And so all these molecules start to affect every single cell, every single tissue, every single organ, every single process that is happening in our body is affected by the pounds of these substances that we put in our body every single day. Besides that, of course, every single cell in our body is built of what we eat. We are not built of thin air. We are actually built of building blocks that are in our foods. That's why we eat. And if you don't want to die very soon, then you'd rather supply those building blocks that also provide energy, but also all the other building blocks and nutrients and substances that we need to build stuff up, but also to run all the processes, to maintain certain blood sugar, to oxygenate our tissues, to extract energy, to support all of our hormonal functions, to maintain our body temperature, to make our neurons in our brain to fire. We need food for all of that. And of course, all foods are different. Every single food is different from any other food. Even seemingly the same food, like bananas, they can be different depending on the kind of bananas, where they were grown, the soil, because then the banana tree would take the nutrients up and put it into fruit. And depending on the soil, you're gonna get different kinds of bananas. So foods are like wildly different, and they have wildly different components in them. And so whatever you choose to eat, depending on the kinds of food you choose, what happens in your body is going to be different. And it's also going to depend on the timing of when you eat food, of course, on your health state, on your activity levels. But let's get back to food. So food have all these, millions of different compounds, and each of them will affect how, again, our cells work, how our tissues, our organs work, what they're made of. And based on what we put on our plate, what we put in our mouth, and what our body does with that, our health is going to change, our fitness is going to change, our energy levels is going to change, the way we think, the way we experience emotions, all of that going to change. Because at the very base, all of what's happening in our body, be that emotion or a thought, it's all just a bunch of chemical reactions that are happening at any certain moment. And Food is also chemicals. Food is comprised of all these chemicals in all these different variations. And so every time we put something in our mouth, we basically change our biochemistry. We change, again, what our cells, tissues, organs are made of and what they do. Because food is also a signal, maybe not so much of a signal, but a sign of what's happening in our environment, right? So especially when we didn't have all these supermarkets available, food was seasonal. It was, for example, a signal. If you were eating fruit, probably it was summer, or probably you lived in a very warm place where fruit was around year round, right? If you didn't have any fruit or plants and you started to eat animals or very little food because, it's not the season where a lot of available and you are kind of like fasting or starving, then it was also a signal that, okay, this is happening in our environment. We need to adjust what's happening in our body in order to survive. So food, but that's just one way. Food affects our brain chemistry, our, again, emotions, what's happening in our gut, what's happening in our blood, how much energy we have at any given point, and all of that affects at the end of the day what we do, how we do it, how our everything functions in our body, and how we feel, and how we approach life, and how active we are. Everything is affected by that. And so, literally, just by changing what we eat, what kinds of food we put on our body regularly, we change our health, because food is building blocks of our body, and food affects every single chemical reaction that is happening. And that's why when you change what you eat, you change those chemicals that come into your body, and you change everything that is happening in your body. And that's why if you change your habits today for a completely new diet for the next, 3, 5, 10 years, you're going to be a completely different person at the end of that period. And usually the longer the time that passes, the more the difference you're going to see. Like if I didn't eat the way I eat, I would be a completely different person. And at some point in my life, I wasn't in great shape. I wasn't in great fitness. I wasn't in a great place mentally and emotionally. And guess what? I didn't eat back then the way I eat now. So food matters, guys. It changes how you feel. It changes your personality, your character. It changes what you do. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it changes your life. And that's how diets work. So choose the diet that at least today makes you feel good. Because if you start feeling really, really good, chances are you are improving your health. And that in turn will improve your life for the better. So if you eat certain diet and at the end of the day or in the morning you wake up and you're like, oh, another day, that means something most probably in your diet is not working. Maybe you're not eating certain nutrients that your body needs. Maybe you're eating too much of some crap that interferes with a lot of processes that are supposed to happen certain way for you to be healthy mentally and physically, but they happen in the other way because that's just how this specific food works in your body. Maybe you eat too much sugar and your blood sugar jumps all over the place, and with that your emotions, your energy jumps all over the place, and then some proteins become sticky because the more sugar in your blood, the more different processes that are supposed to be used for different reactions in our body stick together, and then your body cannot really work really well. So that's just one example how eating, for example, high sugar diet, usually high processed sugar diet can negatively affect your whole life. That's just one example. Food is powerful, and diets can and will change the way you look, your weight, for example, your muscles also, and also the way you feel, everything your body does, your health, your fitness. And so, guys, my challenge and motivation and inspiration for you today is to look closely at your plate and ask yourself, does this make me feel good on a daily basis? Is this working for my better life? And if you know the answer is no, then change something. You're not an animal. You have consciousness. You have willpower to initiate the change, and you can build new habits that will support this change for life. So change something. And if you have any questions about what to do exactly, how you can improve your diet and nutrition, reach out, Angela@createyourself.today, or find me on any social media. And guys, as usual, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And till next time, eat better daily.